Hey there, this is John Bishop. I am here with my good friend, Dr. Nancy Flournoy, and her cousin, Virginia, and her husband, John. And we're going to start our Lifewave webinar right now. So I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed the experiences that I've had over the last year doing these webinars with Nancy. And I think we've done a pretty good job at trying to explain the exciting news behind this company, Lifewave, and what some of these patches can do for people. And we're going to be talking about one of those patches today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy right now.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. So I'm Nancy Flournoy. I have a PhD in biomathematics, Newhouse coming. I have a PhD in biomathematics from the University of Washington, and I have spent most of my career in doing statistical methods for clinical trials. And so I have a lot of science experience. I have a lot of experience with how to do science. But a few years ago, I was introduced by John Bishop to these Lifewave patches, and they have been absolutely marvelous. And so I have had a real good time trying to figure out what they do and how they work. And I'm going to talk about the glutathione patch today. It is one of three. I mean, I gave an overview talk. If you haven't heard that, I hope you will be in touch and get the link from me. There are three patches that are called Y-age. Y-age meaning Y-age. That means they're based, really focused on longevity. And the glutathione is one of them, and we'll talk about the other two in subsequent events. But let me share my screen and get started. So I hope you can see that.
I can see that fine, Nancy. That looks good.
Okay. So glutathione is the specific patch that we're going to talk about tonight. And it is made by Lifewave Corporation, and I am an independent distributor for the corporation. Now, the patches look like this little circle over here, like a little band-aids you put on your skin, and they have crystals on them. And the crystals that are on the patch absorbs your body heat and in return sends back specific frequencies to your body. And in the case of the glutathione patch, they signal the body to produce glutathione. So these patches have photonic and electrical properties. They are essentially a wireless nanotechnology. And one thing I just learned in researching this particular patch is that it is registered with the FDA as a homeopathic product. And so we'll talk more about some of that as we go along. So we're going to start with, what does glutathione do? What is glutathione and what does it do? Why do we care if we get our glutathione levels up? And then we'll talk about what has actually been studied about the glutathione patch itself and how it works. So I'm happy to have you explore this with me. So glutathione levels are associated with longevity. And over here in the white, you can see that the levels tend to decrease with age from 200 nanograms per milliliter in blood at age 20 to around 80 nanograms per liter by age 60. So that's a big decrease. And I'm well over 60, 60 and then some. So without some help, I would probably have much lower levels than this. My husband and I have been paid attention to nutrition and healing modalities for quite some time, and we consult with a nutritional biochemist, and he has had us at various times take glutathione products. So I was quite aware that at least he thought glutathione was important, but I hadn't bothered to study it myself. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So there are well over 90,000 studies that are published on different aspects of glutathione, and it is central to health, as this list just touches upon. The studies involve Parkinson's disease, cardiovascular damage, cancer treatment and prevention, autoimmune diseases, and autism and related disorders. So we can have a whole talk on what glutathione itself in the body does with respect to different diseases, but we're going to look at it from a more basic biology point of view. So the first general comment, couple of high level health claims, is that you simply cannot live without glutathione. And if you go 24 hours without food, where you get the components naturally to make glutathione, if you go 24 hours without food, your liver is going to start stealing amino acids from the proteins in your muscles, and they'll waste your muscles in order to make this critical compound. And the highest concentrations are found in the lungs, the liver, and the brain. So this is what it looks like. This is the glutathione molecule here. And one of the things to notice is that it's big. It is a great big molecule. It's produced naturally in the liver and by neurons in the central nervous system, but it's not easy to get benefit from as a supplement. There are lots of supplements on the market, and as I said, I've taken a number of them myself, but because it's so big, it doesn't tend to get absorbed in a usable form and then become usable in your body. It tends to get all broken up as it goes through the digestive process, and then or not be absorbed at all. So there are a couple of, over here in the orange, I list a couple of ways to get it naturally, namely in whey products, you can absorb it. But for the most part, it's not available as a whole supplement. You have to take the components and make it. And as you age, you really stop making as much as it as you would. So this is a little schematic here of the molecule. I'll come back to that. So glutathione is made up of 3 peptides, and they're kind of divided here, 3 amino acids. Now, you may remember that your body needs 32 amino acids in all, and basically most everything is made up of these amino acids one way or another, either made up of them or they need the amino acids somehow in order to make them. So, so the glycine, you can get that from chewing on bones. We don't chew so much on bones as we used to, at least when I was a kid. Those people that are my age will remember that our parents always made Jell-O, and one of the reasons was to get gelatin, was to get this glycine component. And then it comes in various beans. Cysteine is available in protein-rich foods, and it is very hard for vegans to get enough. It is available to some extent in beans, but mostly it's in meat products. And so it is wise for vegans to supplement with cysteine. And glutamate is the most abundant amino acid in our diet. It's available in lots of things. So the components to glutathione are pretty available. I don't know how many of you know biochemistry enough, but when you look at a little diagram like this, I've written down here H is hydrogen, O is oxygen, N is nitrogen, S is sulfur, and these components are hanging off this little stick line. And the stick line is basically a chain of carbon atoms, and nobody writes down the carbons because they're the backbone of all the amino acids. The sulfur I point out in particular is hanging off here in the cysteine molecule because it's the common chemical abbreviation for glutathione is GSH, which doesn't naturally come from the word glutathione. And so it might be hard to remember that that is in fact what the abbreviation GSH means, but the S stands for the sulfur. So although glutathione does a lot of things, we're going to focus today on its role as an antioxidant. And I think that if anybody's paying attention to nutrition at all, you've heard a lot about antioxidants. But I don't know how well people actually know what an antioxidant is. So I got 2 slides to kind of discuss what antioxidants are on a deeper level. So glutathione is one, and it's called a free radical scavenger. So we'll talk about what that means. And it is very good at detoxifying. It binds with a number of metals and helps with the elimination of those. So what's a free radical? Well, you have lots of atoms in your body, and if the atom usually has atoms, you'll usually have electrons coming in pairs, but when one gets ripped off, and so you have this free electron floating around, it's like having a hot electrical wire that is hot. And you know, if you've got they say a live wire, because it's been ripped out of a wall or something, but the electrical charge is going through, it can even jump around. And so that's what this the free radicals are, these uncontrolled charges that go bouncing around your body, really causing havoc and destabilizing other molecules. So they can cause all kinds of unpredictable damage because they're uncontrolled. And this little diagram here shows, again, if one's paying attention to nutritional talk, one can hear a lot about oxidative stress. This diagram, I think, is a nice little schematic about how it relates to free radicals and antioxidants. That is, if you have a lot of free radicals compared to the number of antioxidants, such that your teeter-totter is, going down on the free radical side, then it causes oxidative damage. Now, where do we most commonly see oxidative damage, just to get an idea in your mind? And that's if you have a banana and you leave it out on the table and it turns black. That banana has been oxidated. So that's the kind of damage that goes on in your tissues when you have these free radicals floating around. And so the damage can occur to lipids, that's your fats, occurs to your proteins, it occurs to nucleic acids. And so it results in both inflammation in your body, which is not healthy unless you have an infection and you need it taken care of. And it results in actually injuring the tissues themselves. So we don't want free radicals and we don't want oxidative stress. Glutathione is called the master antioxidant. And so on the left here, I have a little picture of how the antioxidant is relating to the free radical. And so in the free radical, as we said, we have electrons that are paired, these little blue paired minus signs. And then over here, we have one that's not paired. It's all by itself. And so what the antioxidant does is it's got these string of negative charges, and it goes around giving away negative charges to where there are unpaired electrons. So it completes the pair, it plugs the charge, and it stabilizes the free radical so it's not a free radical anymore. And the thing that's really different about glutathione from other antioxidants is that it regenerates itself. It can, once it's spent it's given away all its electrons, it goes back to the liver and fills up with a whole new set, and then goes back out and starts delivering them again. And it not only fills itself up, it goes out when it meets another antioxidant like vitamin C and vitamin E. And without glutathione, when the vitamin C has given its antioxidant up to match up a free radical, it's done. I mean, it's finished. It has no more antioxidant value to you. But the glutathione can also recharge the vitamin C and the vitamin E, therefore boosting your whole ability to take care of molecules that need to be tamed in your body. Now, mostly when we hear about free radicals in the nutritional literature, we hear about where they are coming from outside the body. And you got too much sun, or people are smoking, and we have radiation from our cell phones and our microwaves, etc. And all the pollution that we're involved in, and all of that can enter the body and disrupt everything, including your DNA. But one thing that you don't hear about so much is that free radicals are also produced inside the body, just as a normal part of your metabolism. So inside the mitochondria is a little engine producing part of your cell, and it makes the basic energy packages called ATP that go around and do all the constructive work in your body, or provide the energy for doing the constructive work in your body. And the process of making the ATP produces free radicals. So they need to be cleaned up. And therefore you need antioxidants like glutathione to just maintain, even if you were not getting any insults from outside your body at all, you still need to be able to clean up after the basic processes that are good. And free radicals are also created as part of your detox process in the liver. And the liver has like 3 stages that the toxins and the garbage from your digestion and from living will go through 3 different stages. And in the first stage, basically any big molecules are kind of chopped up. It's kind of like, you do the first pass at cutting things up. And then they get ready for the second stage, which binds them up to send them out of your body. So in the first stage, where it's chopping everything up, a lot of free radicals are made, and they then need to be cleaned up in the second stage. So the normal life requires a lot of antioxidants just to stay healthy, for basic health. And I won't say too much about this, but there are, antioxidants come in different forms. They can be enzymes or not enzymes. They can be soluble in water or soluble in fats, and they can be large and they can be small. And I've highlighted in yellow references to glutathione here. Some of it, as in here, this non-enzymatic antioxidant is the normal form that we've been talking about of glutathione. And it happens to be water soluble, and it is a small molecule. But there's another form when glutathione gets mixed up with hydrogen peroxide, called peroxidase, gets mixed up with this enzyme, and then it can, it's very useful for taking care of dangerous products and converting them to hydrogen peroxide, and then further to water so they can be discharged. It's very important in detoxing a number of those things that come from outside your body. And we see it over here again in this reference to large molecules that it works for cleaning up your system. So I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, but back to glutathione and longevity. And so we have these two forms. We have two forms of, let me go back here a minute. Okay, well, so the non-standard form of glutathione is also called reduced glutathione. And you have some of both, and when you're young and healthy, about 90% of your glutathione is in the normal form that I showed you the picture of. And only about 10 of it has been oxidized. And this ratio is important, and it's a measure of health and a predictor of longevity. So we're going to see that in some of the studies. That is, they're looking at the ratio, that particular ratio. So now let's talk about what we actually know about the glutathione patch. The little print on the side of the slide here, if you come back to these slides, will tell you that the papers are all available on the Lifewave. These papers are all available on the Lifewave website, and they make interesting reading. One paper by Lisa Tully and her colleagues was a pilot study. A lot of one of the things that's sort of sad for me being a statistician is that a lot of the studies that Lifewave does are small sample studies, and I understand they everything they do costs a lot of money, and when they do a study, they like to take a lot of measurements and look at a lot of things in detail. So it's a trade-off, and subjects are expensive to study. So so in this study, we only have 9 subjects. It's an early study, but the subjects were patched every 12 hours. In 2 different locations, at the sternum and at just below the belly button. And this was an important study in that even though it was small, all subjects showed an increase in their blood glutathione. And it would be hard, even with 9 subjects, if the blood glutathione was kind of randomly fluctuating, to have all 9 go up. And this little graph here shows the horizontal axis is days, and the vertical axis is the amount of glutathione in the blood in terms of nanomoles per liter. And the bars are standard deviations, and you can see the dots are the means. You can see the group as a whole goes up over the first week, sort of plateaus, and then starts to rise again in terms of their glutathione levels. They were looking for, glutathione, we said, could be an enzyme or not an enzyme. They were looking for changes in enzymes. They didn't find them. But I should comment from a statistical point of view that with only 9 subjects, that's one of the downsides of having small sample sizes, is there can be real changes that you just miss because your sample size is so small. So the fact that you don't see something, doesn't mean it absolutely isn't there. It just means that that it may or may not be there and you were not able to find it. Another study done early here for this particular patch was 10 subjects were patched and 5 had a patch, but it didn't have a crystal on it. And they were chosen to have at least 6 months of pain before patching. And they were patched for just 24 hours. And the subjects, the blood glutathione increased in all of the subjects. And there were no changes seen, no statistical changes seen in the control group. Again, only 5 subjects. But between these 2 studies, they have some reasonable evidence that the patch is doing what they designed it to do, which was to increase your glutathione levels. This particular study did a lot of other tests, which I'm not going to talk about in detail, but some of this equipment we'll talk about in the context of some other studies to come. So one of the things that's hard for Lifewave is to find equipment that will measure the things they want to measure, because a lot of the bioelectrical frequencies that are of interest in the body are low, and they're lower than what than the kinds of things that would typically be measured in your doctor's office or in a standard lab. And so there is this continual look for equipment that measures the more subtle energy levels. One of these pieces of equipment is called, that they use, is called a gas discharge visualization. And when I talked about the glutathione patch last year, I spent a huge amount of time trying to find out about this piece of equipment, and it was very frustrating. But I should have read Melinda Connor's paper because she had a lot of information on it, which I found this year. So I'm much more up to date than I was before. Some of you may be familiar with Kirlian photography. This particular machine is like a modern souped up Kirlian photography machine. The little leaf here in the corner is a picture, an image taken from this machine that shows a nice healthy leaf, and it's all bright and looks good. And if you have a non-healthy leaf, you get one that looks sort of dead. So one of the challenges is how to turn these pictures into useful measurements. But the basic idea is they have a plate that somebody puts their hands on, and your skin breathes. And so in the process of the natural respiration of your skin, there is moisture that's discharged. And what they're picking up is just a measure of the electrons from the metal plate interacting with the water molecules. And that's enough to generate these, very interesting pictures that look really nice when you're healthy and really not when you're not. Now they match that with, over here on the left, it's too small, I'm sure, for you to read, but there's a little circle here for each of your fingers. And so this machine was developed in Russia, and in European countries, many European countries are very comfortable with the meridian system as a way to talk about energy flow and bioenergy in the human body. So, each of these fingers is mapped to an organ in the body, and they try to interpret, or they do interpret, the activity that they measure on the fingers as a reflection of what's happening elsewhere in the body. So they do that on the one hand. They also take measurements at the particular locations where the patch is placed. So what I wasn't able to find, so in the United States, if you go to the web and you look for this, there's a lot of controversy and not very much information. And as with some of these other devices, the controversy tends to come from the medical community, and the proponents tend to come from the physics community or in the biophysics community. So, you can take that for what it's worth. But this device is, this was 1990. In 1990, it was being used in 20 countries for clinical and diagnostic purposes. And I believe even to this date, it's still considered experimental in the United States. And what Melinda Connor tells us, because obviously she was trying to research this too as she's explaining it, is that it seems that the main reason that the US has not approved its use is that they don't like the fact that the display on the piece of equipment refers to things by way of the meridian system instead of just the organ system. And so in her analysis in the studies that she did, she analyzed things both with respect to the organ system and the meridian system to try and bridge that gap. So this is the study, 2011. It was a double-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized pilot study of 10 subjects and 10 controls. And the patch subjects showed changes in their gas emission over a period of 1 hour. So in just a period of an hour, this is 1 hour after being patched, the patterns changed. And they were being patched in the solar plexus region. Down here, you can see the red dot. So one is the gas emissions changed, and then when they mapped the changes to the different organs, they were found to be specifically in the liver, the kidney, and the nervous system. And control subjects did not show any change. One more study by Greenberg and Nazarin. Nazarin is a physicist, an engineer who has retired from, I think it's El Paso University in Texas. Sherry Blake Greenberg actually has a clinic where she uses this equipment for diagnosing things in patients, and she has a website, and you can go find her there. Although I emailed her and didn't get an answer, so maybe everybody's aging. But this particular piece of equipment is called the Electro Interstitial Scan Device. And it's very much like an EKG. You get leads, and the leads go from here to there to everywhere. But they're measuring things again on a much more subtle energy level than the EKG would, because that's the kind of, we're looking for electrical impedances through the body at a much more subtle level than you're looking in terms of your heart and your brain. So they had 2 cohorts. One had 10 subjects that were patched every day. One had 20 subjects that were patched 5 days a week. So it's only differing by 2 days a week. And the subjects that were patched daily, they had significant changes for both the right and left adrenal glands, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the liver, the gallbladder, and the intestines, and none for the pancreas, not for the pancreas. The second cohort that was patched less frequently did not show changes for the liver, the gallbladder, and the intestines as well. And that could be that if they went fewer days a week, but they kept going, those changes might appear. Again, there are many questions in terms of scheduling and how to actually optimally use the patches. They do say just 12 hours daily. That's important because David, the founder and CEO of Lifewave, repeatedly will tell us that with light, your body will attenuate and quit listening. So if you wear it's not that the crystal wears out, it's that if you wear the patches too long, your body can just turn off to the signal altogether for a while. And then you have to wait who knows how long before they're useful to you again. As I think I was telling my cousin Virginia about my doctor who started using these patches after we told her how they worked, how the ice wave, which we'll talk about later, how it worked with Leonard. She started using some of the patches at night, and then she would put them on her husband during the day. So they both got use out of one patch a day. So that's all I'm going to talk about in terms of the antioxidant story with respect to glutathione. I will mention a few things that glutathione does that we're not going to go into any more detail about, but just to give you an idea of how broad its effects are. It's known to preserve telomeres. Now, telomeres, if we could do a whole talk on the telomeres, but your genes have little caps on the end. And as they divide, these caps get smaller and smaller and smaller. And when they aren't there anymore, the cell doesn't divide anymore. And that's been related to how long we live. And so one of the efforts in longevity is to get those telomeres to stay long. And glutathione is related to preserving the telomeres. So that's good. It's also needed to make what you need for tissue building, which we need to do all the time, and repairing damage. It's neuroprotective. I think I mentioned that at the first. So that's a whole nother line of investigation to see how it might be related to the symptoms of Parkinson's, MS, and Alzheimer's. And it's critical for immune function and inflammation. So just a comment about its immune power. And that is that if you don't have enough glutathione, your body will not make white blood cells. And white blood cells are the foot soldiers of your immune system. So that's basic. And they've also been shown to be natural killer cells. Another thing that's that I learned from one of the CEO, David Smith's talks recently, is that he was talking about the energy patch, and the energy patch helps you produce ATP. But his comment was that if, we talked at the beginning about ATP, the making of ATP produces antioxidants. And if you don't have enough antioxidants to clean up that mess from making ATP, then your body stops making the ATP. So when you're tired and lethargic and you think, it's hard to get through the day, the problem may be that you're an antioxidant problem deficit, not a problem with something else in the energy production system. So I'm going to close by saying that Lifewave products are not medical products. They are not, none of this is intended as medical advice. You're all encouraged to consult your physician for medical problems. I will say that I feel very fortunate that my physician is open-minded about things that are discovered in other fields outside of the medical field, and also interested in basic biophysics and physiology. So what you do is up to you. And with that, I'll thank you for joining me tonight, and I will turn this back over to John.
Thank you very much, Nancy. That was great. Okay, we're gonna have a little, what we do is have a little question and answer time before we leave. Thanks again, Nancy. That was really wonderful.
Thank you, John.
So you guys can unmute yourselves, and if you got a question there, don't hesitate.
Philip?
I have a glutathione patch right here.
Oh, good for you.
I have a head cold. I'm trying to get rid of it, and this is the suggested patch for sinus drainage and everything. I don't know why it is, but I've gone from a baritone to a bass, so I'm waiting.
Yeah, you do sound deep. I've got my aloe vera patch on.
Oh, yeah. We don't get embarrassed about where we wear our patches in Lifeway.
Right. Well, yeah, there was so much being talked about lately with X39, X49. It was really nice to kind of go back to this. Nancy had given one previously on glutathione. Now it was today's webinar was much more of a just finding more things that I certainly didn't know until today. So I think really glutathione is kind of just the word glutathione just almost makes people kind of pull back a little bit, because it sounds.
It's a big word, like it's a big molecule.
Yeah, and it's a big molecule, right? But boy, how much our body needs it. That was very clearly presented by you today, Nancy. So thank you.
So I should say that every week's probably too ambitious for me to prepare these talks. And so we were thinking of sort of a bi-weekly schedule, but the end of the month is my mother's 103rd birthday coming up, and I'm going to LA. So the next talk should be the first Friday in March.
Okay, first Friday in March.
And I thought I'd stay with the Y-on patches. So the next one would be the E-on patch.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Is that right? I want to do the carnosine. Carnosine is also the name of a molecule. So it's really clear what Lifewave is trying to target, what David is trying to target and do. The molecule is well defined. The third patch, E-on, is not a molecule. So it's more difficult to investigate. So we'll save that one for last. Although I think I mentioned at my introductory talk that he let it slip or told us in one of his talks that is targeting the queen bee peptide. So that's enticing too. So
Virginia or John, or I don't think I know Nuha.
Nuha is here in the condo complex with us.
Okay.
And I don't know if Izzy's with her, but Izzy is a physicist. So
Oh, wow.
I had said I would be particularly interested in some feedback when I, interpret physics things as to whether I'm doing a good job.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good time for Nuha or Izzy to take the floor there.
I think they're shy or I think we've got what we're going to get. So maybe we just wrap it up.
Okay, all right. Thank you again, Nancy. Wonderful as usual. This is the company now that I've been in it for a little over 2 years. It never ceases to amaze me what kind of information is coming out, through the company and through people like Nancy. So I'm in a completely different place than I was a few years ago when I just had my pain suddenly go away, just it was gone. And I didn't know too much about the science. I didn't know too much about how the company worked, but now it's a lot better, and have a lot of gratitude just for the people that I've known through this process. Got to meet the president in Las Vegas for a convention. Found him to be an incredible man, very, very low key, very down to earth, but I feel he's a brilliant scientist, and this really is the only company in the world that has this kind of technology. There just isn't another company. So that's a clue.
Well, they got patents on it all.
They got patents on it. That's right. I think for 20 years. So, but it's good for us to benefit in both ways. We can benefit from the patches and sharing them with others, and possibly, we can talk about it if anybody's interested in doing this as a side. Some people are doing it as a side business, and some people are doing it more full time. Either way,
I think they're interested in trying the patches. So
yes, so
that's first step first.
First step. That is always the first step. So if there's any interest beyond that or about the company, either Nancy or myself can answer your questions. Okay, so with that, we'll say good evening, good night.
Bye.
Great time. See you next time.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you,
Nancy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.